We at SupportLogic are committed to bringing the latest and the best practices to some of the critical support operations. And today we're going to be diving deep into quality management as part of that. I'm Harish. I'm a VP of Product and Ecosystems at SupportLogic. I'm here by way of an acquisition. I had founded a company called M2P Labs, where we built one of the world's first AI-powered quality management solution for all channels of support, email, text, or voice. We are now under the SupportLogic umbrella. Great going so far, and a lot of strong traction that we are seeing. I'll pass it on to panelists. Neil?
Thank you very much, Harish, and good morning, good evening, everyone. I'm talking to you today from London, and I work for 8x8, where we provide unified communication and contact center solution to our customers. I've been with 8x8 for 2 years, and I'm super excited to be here, part of this panel, and talk about the importance of quality management, automation, all of that under the umbrella of AI. I'll leave it to Eddie.
Hi, my name's Eddie. Eddie Gonzalez, coming in from Raleigh, East Coast, on the U.S. And with Bandwidth, we've been with Bandwidth for about 8 years, and we're a CPaaS carrier and provider. And I'm happy to discuss quality management and on everything under the support.
And everybody, my name is David Wilson. I currently lead the support operations and strategy team for DoorDash. Been with them for about a year now. Unique journey that we're on involves this particular subject is a very strong path for us into second half of this year. And so happy to be aboard. Back to you, Harsh.
All right, perfect. So everyone on the call, I have opened up a poll question. The question is about what is your current resource allocation for QM? While you answer that, I'll kick it off. To the panel, let's just get started with the basics of quality management, right? So in the contact center world, in support center worlds, what is quality management and why is it even important? Why do we even need to go after that? Eddie, if you want to kick it off.
Yeah, quality management is important. It helps set expectations both internally with your team members and externally with your customers as far as like what your support experience looks like. Kind of helps give a predictable experience. I think as teams grow and to supporting your customer base at scale, how do you make sure that experience is the same? When you have teams that are spread across a lot of locations, time zones, quality management is that critical component to make sure that we're able to duplicate that same experience over and over again. With oversight, checking, making sure that that experience is how you want your brand and your support experience to come off.
Nice. Neer, what's your take on that as a contact center provider yourself?
So I think in like everything in life, quality is important, specifically in this business where we interact with humans. We would like to make sure that we provide consistent customer experience. In order to do that, you need to go and make sure you can have a specific baseline, which you believe is your gold standard, and try to achieve it again and again and again. Without a real consistent measurement and quality assurance, it's really hard to get there. And because we talk about humans serving other humans, the level of complexity that's involved in this quality assurance process is probably unique, and it's very exciting to see how you can improve upon it and get into a different level while you really embrace some tools and automation, rather than just using the same old way of human reviewing and providing coaching to other humans.
And so how I think about this is, so first of all, QA is generally a measurement of history. It's already happened. And so what we get out of quality is just an understanding, as Neer said, is how closely we're aligning to the gold standards that we're trying to do. I think one of the challenges that I've had, not just where I am today, but any company, is how do you align a quality program to the goals that you have generally for your key metrics and for the business? And so I think about, right now we're on this journey to understand how can we actually correlate the results, because frankly, I think a lot of times quality management tends to be about how closely did I follow a process. But customer experience is more than a process. It's also how I felt about it, which is super difficult to have a large team like we do. I think with internally and externally at DoorDash, look, I think the number is probably somewhere between 700 and 1,000 people who are individually are measuring and trying to get consistency across that is a big challenge. We're going all in on empathy at this point, and that's even harder because it's a difficult definition to get, and difficult to get consistency ongoing without individual interpretation and extrapolation on exactly what quality probably should mean to them. Which is why automation is super interesting here. Can we, and this is the challenge that we're taking on, can we somehow align an automation to understanding human feeling? We think it's possible, and we'll, if we come back here a year from now, we'll probably have a much better answer than I do right now, which is we're just at the beginning of the journey.
Yeah, great points. Absolutely, in line with that. But as you roll out this quality management as a function, as a process, there are various aspects to it, right? So there is the idea of how are my engineers or agents, conducting themselves with the customers. That is the overall theme here. Do you try to focus on the soft skills part of it? Is the focus on the technical skills part? Like, how do you think about your quality, rubric or scorecard, what have you?
I mean, I can start on this one. I do think about soft skills. I think it's tougher though. I think what we're trying to do is make sure that we're changing the purpose of the call into action. And I think that's what we're trying to do with this. I think it gets difficult to think solely about soft skills because, 7 billion people in the world and 7 billion people, different ways of acting. So it's difficult to understand how do you measure a consistent standard with personalization in humans. And so I think, yes, we can do certain things easily through a very tight measurement of process. I think that what we're doing is we're trying to combine some sentiment analysis, some very key flags that we would want to understand performance of, so that generally they can be used as additional inputs into the actual quality management program itself. So I would say that we're supplementing our quality program with other tools that we're sort of MacGyvering together just so that we can get an overall picture.
So let me build upon that. I think for me, when I look about quality, it's really the full experience for the customer, and it touches all the points that you talked about. It's processes, because there should be some process that people follow. It should be the experience as a whole, what the customer felt, which is probably the most complex one, because people have different expression, different words, different thing. And when you serve customers across the world, humans are very complex machines to interrupt. And then, of course, the ultimate is the actual resolution. This conversation or web chat or a web case really resolved the problem or whatever the customer were calling. So it's all of the above. And we use, a relatively complex spreadsheet with all of those things about, really the trinity of, the people, the tools, the processes. It's all of it together that drive a successful or unsuccessful interaction. So it's all of the above for me, and it's not just one element, because then you miss. I'll put it this way: a great conversation with a lot of empathy without a resolution is probably better than no resolution with no empathy, but it's not what we're trying to achieve, right? This is all usually remedial services. You try to get something, otherwise people won't. Whether it's a DoorDash complaint where I complain about my driver, my food, usually people don't call and say, hey, I had a great experience. The food was really, really good. They usually won't do that. Yes, right. It's not that. Right? So for remedial, you need to get an action out of it. You need to have some closure. And while soft skills are crucial for that, if there's no closure, it's only half of the quality. It's not what we're looking for.
Got it.
Yeah, and just kind of soft skills are, I mean, they're important. Soft skills, emotional intelligence. It's a good call out. Like, as our customers are reaching out, there's something broken, something happened somewhere, and our teams are there to kind of help close that gap, figure out what's stuck somewhere, and break that out. So soft skills are critical when we're bringing on new team members. Those are things that we want to make sure we have, and then also with quality management, to coach those skills, to coach how to turn a situation that's sideways and get it, turn that experience into a positive experience with the customer. So it's critical.
Yeah. So is there a difference here in how we look at quality management for a B2B operation? So near Eddie, you're clearly a B2B companies here, but David is mostly B2C, right? Maybe not. So I would let you correct.
We're definitely feeling like a B2B conversation.
Okay. So is there a difference in how we approach quality when you're a B2C business with maybe less complex tickets but very high volume versus a B2B where slightly more complex, longer times to resolution, but low volume? Would you approach it differently?
So I would say as far as B2B, yeah, like when we're working those issues, and a lot of those issues are very complex issues. It takes days to work, a lot of interaction, a lot of back and forth. In as far as experience with B2C, I think I see some of those maybe more transactional, and as far as working through and trying to get that resolution to a better spot. But B2B issues, they are, for our organization are more complex. And then the soft skills, again, they tie into those, and understanding, again, when you have critical infrastructure, critical systems you're running, how are we maintaining, how are we supporting it, and again, everybody keeping cool and keeping that customer in a good spot.
Yeah, I would agree. I think for our merchants, and we would have a very different way of understanding success from a quality perspective. Customers, end users want to make sure that they're getting their delivery. Merchants, busy people, it's almost like we're a BPO for them in a way. And so, we want to make sure that we're addressing their complexity and measuring the outcome of that complexity in a pretty different way. So yes, I would say that, we have three different groups today. We have our dashers, who are with us to try and make some money for their families. We have consumers, obviously, and then merchants, who are ultimately a combination of, I would say, we have tactical things that we're doing in the day-to-day of our business, and you need to be there for me now, and you need to get this solved, and we have to measure it that way. And then there's the typical account management items that at the account level, what do we need to do to keep you as a customer and keep you happy as a customer? So those are very different things for us.
Nice. I had a poll about the resource allocation for QM, and we have some answers. Looks like there's only one team, somebody who have dedicated QA specialists. So I want to just build on top of that, which is, as you think of quality management in your organizations, how do you build up the ROI for this, right? Because you already hired people, you already spent a bunch of time in training, on coaching, onboarding them. Now this is a more continuous process. How do you build the ROI? How do you build a case that, hey, this has to exist? I need to allocate resources, whether it's people or software or what have you. How do you think about the ROI picture here?
Well, I don't think it's that difficult, because unless you're running a company that have a very low volume of cases, and you hire one guy who can audit and monitor all the cases, then I have a team. In our group, it's about 4 dedicated individuals. They still can sample 0.01% of the interactions. So if I want to get a better sample size and get better accuracy, then the ROI is clear. Also, I look at quality management and different aspects of doing it. While it's true that it's in some way a lagging indicator. It can also be considered for me as a leading indicator, because first, the transaction is not always a one-time thing. It can happen multiple times, and you can measure the progression of the case. Then you can see a better scope of how things trending, and you can intervene before the entire case is closed. Now, it's a very simple transaction about reset my password. You can't really do too much about that. But if it's a more complex issue, requires multiple interaction, then you have a really good chance to intervene and take a conversation to start it kind of not necessarily in the right direction and make it a successful interaction. Now, that's opened up the door for something completely new or different. It's, real-time coaching, real-time quality management. How do you really do that? I think the ROI is, I wouldn't say it's simple, because it's like almost everything around customer sentiment, very hard to calculate, because how do you really correlate between a happy customer to a not happy customer to exactly why they churn or didn't churn? It's a complicated math, but logically, it's a relatively simple thing to explain, I think, to almost anyone that is within the customer experience business.
I think it also comes just, when you're telling that story or trying to communicate the ROI, like why should I spend time and energy on this? And again, when you're trying to say you want to protect your brand and that brand experience or that support experience, you can, as you look in your spaces and the spaces that we operate in, for us, you're competing in a certain product. What sets you apart outside of the product, on that support experience, and as far as how do you manage and make sure that it's being maintained across the board. It just helps maintain and build that picture and for your customers and how you want to interact and support them and in their business operations.
I would say for us, there's a couple of strong ROI points for me. One is, like I said, we're undergoing a massive transformation of our front line and the way they actually interact with customers, and trying to move them to a more human from being robotic and scripted. And so in order for us to be able to measure our success along the way, we've put together a scorecard that will help us understand how we're actually performing against that. So it's our measurement tool to say how successful we're actually being in converting the entire network to this new way. The other thing I think about is, and we don't really have a great answer in a manual situation, but I think about the concept of edges here. And, we're only sampling, Near has a 0.0 something coverage. Today we're, with manual, we're only able to do 2% because it's difficult to justify the headcount to be able to go beyond that. Because in some ways it's, are we actually just meeting the standard that we want? And this is just a reassurance factor for us. But I also think that it's also difficult to make sure you're understanding where are all the pain points in your overall ecosystem. You can't do that with 2%. You can get some of it from 2%, but there has to be a better way of identifying where those edges are and those rough edges within your company's processes, so that you can hopefully hone in on that. And that would be a massive ROI for me personally, to make sure that, one of the changes that I can do to smoothen that edge is actually a reduced customer contact rate or reduced interaction time, so that, I can overall spend less on support itself. And so I think those are the two ways that I kind of think about the ROI.
I would like to add, because you said something really, really important here. I think the other way to look at quality management is another great tool for the voice of the customer. We all have tools. We spend a lot of money there. And here you get a tool that theoretically provides you 100% participation from customers. On every other voice of the customer, there's a sample size of return rate. It's usually, 10% is considered to be good. Over here, you get an opportunity to hear and feel what your customers are feeling in every interaction. And that's priceless. You can drive, not just get to, with the traditional quality management, you really just make sure that you are meeting your bar. It's okay. With automated quality assurance, you can really get to a point where you raise your bar, you understand where your pain point, you get consistent feedback around pain point in the organization. So it's not just the tactical thing of taking agent A and coaching him and making him to be a better agent, you can theoretically drive consistent improvement across the organization and all the points customer consistently are not happy about. It's a huge opportunity for me as more a voice of the customer rather than just coaching individuals and making sure that agent A is now a better agent.
And you know what, let me build on that one more time, because I think the way we use ours today, the way we have been using it over the last 6 months of this year, because we just, the first 6 months of this year, because we just switched, is it's a voice of the employee input as well. Because we've altered some of our questions to be able to say, to get away from the binary yes or no, and just add a third option, for instance, that would say no, but if it were me, here's a suggestion I would make in order to change. And we're getting a lot of valuable feedback, specifically at the process level, to say, if I could turn the widget 1/4 to the left, I would be able to have solved this in a lot less time, kind of thing. And so we're mining that information as well, and we're handing it back to some of our process design teams to say, you know what, here's some feedback from the front line, who are also is just as important an element here in the improvement of processes at a business is voice of the customer as well.
Nice. Yeah, this is a great tool to kind of bridge that voice of customer and voice of the employee. You're trying to bring both of them together as we try to improve the customer experience part. Right? One of the poll questions I had here was about how do you visualize this? Is the outcome of a QM process as an input to your coaching protocols, or is it just a standalone KPI measure? We got some interesting answers because we've spoken to teams where they actually have a QA score as one of these weekly dashboard measures, KPI measures they're tracking to their senior management, to the executive management. So that was very interesting. And then there are teams who take it much more as a qualitative input to their overall coaching program, right? And the teams that have actually positioned a QA score as a KPI measure, they told us that they even give some bonuses to their agents. Like if they kind of cross the QA score consistently, they even get some cash bonuses as well, right? So teams are approaching it very, very differently depending on where they are in their journey of customer experience. What do you think of that part? Like, how do you view QM's output? Is it more on the coaching side? Is it a KPI thing? Is actually some tangible cash benefit? I mean, that was very interesting for us when we heard that. How do you view that?
I think we use our quality management for both like a KPI tracking performance and see where we go, and we also use it as a coaching. And as we're normally onboarding, say a new team member, right? You might see someone's their quality, not necessarily where you want it, but we use that as a measure to kind of show you could see improvements as we're working with team members, to help improve that support experience, and you can kind of see as you're going through and you manage that experience, and you see the improvement from that team member improve over time as you're managing that experience and using it to kind of coach and say, hey, here's where we want the experience to go, or here's where we could have adjusted, or hey, here's where we could have made an improvement on the export experience. So then to see how the performance on the quality, and kind of use it as some sort of benchmark to see how certain teams are performing and as a and their support workflow.
Great. And I think we touched upon this piece a bit, and I'll probably get to that again, which is the real-time coaching aspect that Nate talked about, right? So most of the QM we do is post facto, right? So the interaction has already happened. The case of the ticket is probably closed in the ticketing system. Now we got it, and then we are kind of evaluating that to figure out what happened and provide feedback. In probably a different world where there's real-time coaching really possible, and assuming it's being done really, really well, accurately, how do you think of quality in that aspect? So there are teams trying to move to this real-time prompting and coaching. The quality of all the software has not been that great, and people are actually frustrated when they see these real-time prompts. How do you think of that, like real-time versus post-facto?
I think the job of the manager of the agent or the teammate or the employee is more responsible for real-time coaching. I think in my own head, where I'd love from a vision perspective is to be able to have this complement that in-person real time or whatever it is coaching. So for me, for instance, my ideal vision here is I, as a frontline agent, come in the following day after a hard day yesterday, and I can log into my system so that in fact what I actually get is a listing of all my interactions from the day before, possibly with a score, which I think would be super helpful, and possibly with some observations about how I could have done things differently. And so I can use that going into the day. I don't know that personally I feel like real-time coaching is as important as in like near-time coaching. Because look, if you lead large organizations, or if you lead a BPO team that does 50 to 100 interactions in a day, none of them are going to remember those individually the next day, but it is good to give them a picture of how they performed overall and the benefit of them being able to course correct versus a one-time coaching on a weekly basis of one interaction that may or may not have been their best work during the week. I think just, getting more volume and more data points for the front line is exactly what they need. And I think that's personally where the vision is heading for me.
Great.
For me, I think it's a mix. So definitely I will join the same vision as David. And I think being able to get a scorecard, whether it's daily or weekly or whatever, that shows a mix of all of my interactions. Because I remember my days as a young engineer, you're getting dinged once in a while on a bad CSAT and bad coaching and say, this is really not fair. I had really 100 really good interaction, and then you find that particular bad one. When you look at the averages and all of it blended together, that's a little bit more compelling, and it's a great way to get motivation and improve. But I also think that there is a place for a real time, and specifically when you think about voice interaction, if you complement the whisper option and all of those other contact center functionality into real-time software analytics that can prompt and either tell your manager and supervisor and say, hey, something is going off the grid here. Maybe you want to intervene. So there's different ways to do that, where you put different level of machine learning there to try to interrupt the customer's sentiment and do real-time alerting or intervening. Not necessarily that I would like to see the bot jumping into a call and start talking instead of the humans, but alerting the supervisor, the manager, that there's something here that is either super good or not. Can be a nice feature. I do recognize if you're talking about extremely high level volume with lots of transactions, maybe it's less important. But for I would say, when you really support large enterprises and every interaction is extremely important, that can be very useful. Again, moving ahead and before things are done and closed, and give you an opportunity to change the course of the conversation.
I think what both are important. Near time is important. After that case has moved on is also important. But I think when you look at the front end team member, right? They them getting that feedback, pretty close to near time, or that following day get a summary, and that team lead or that manager, they're also a part of that safety net. You have multiple layers of people looking and getting analysis and sentiment and quality on the ticket. And, if the team member misses it, then the team lead could catch it. If the team lead misses it, then the manager can catch it. So different layers, I think, of coaching and intervening and using AI. And there's different tools out there that can give, your team members the ability to kind of say, okay, hey, I need to course correct here. Or, hey, there's a support experience that's not going on. It's negative. There's some frustration. We're not progressing fast enough. What can we do to kind of help get that case back into a better state and make that interaction better? But yeah, I think near time is critical, and again, that after action again on volume is also great at measuring and capturing what that looks like.
Great.
Hey, Harsh, there's a question from Dustin. Was asking. You want to go through that?
Yeah, Eddie mentioned quality of the agent and improving that over time. How is that measured? Can you be more specific? And David mentioned a quality scorecard as well. What is that measuring? Could we share specifics there too?
Yeah, so bandwidth. Each team member is measured on our quality. And have a scorecard that we're measuring that, and we kind of have goals that we want team members to reach, as far as, hey, here's what we expect, or here's what an experience should look like if we're checking all the boxes. Not every box is always going to get checked, but hey, here's where we like to meet. And so with that interaction, the team members, we take that, average, just like a regular scoring, and we kind of show improvement on those interactions, one-on-ones, where the team leader manager will pull that team member and say, hey, here's if there is a negative experience, we'll go. And we also highlight good experiences, bad experience, highs and lows, and kind of show, hey, here's where we're doing good, here's where we can improve. And you kind of see, what characteristics are we looking for? Empathy. How are we communicating? Are we understanding the issue? How are we measuring it? Are we resolving that issue the best way, the most efficient way? Because there's multiple ways you can fix an issue. And so, we track that, with our BI tools, and the individual, the team member they're also tracking and seeing where they're performing. But again, a lot of coaching, and just kind of sharing, like, hey, here's where we missed the mark, or here's where we crushed it. And so that's how we measure and use it to kind of coach and get, a team member in a better space. Or, hey, if a support experience went sideways, we use quality management to get it where we need it.
In our case, because we're doing this transformation, where our quality scorecard is made up of the elements that we're trying to achieve through human behavior. And so we've broken it into a much lower number of questions, because before there were 25 questions that were mostly focused on process, and that really wasn't helping the experience. And so we've divided it into 8 questions, 6 of which really focus on the outcome of the customer experience from an empathy and from an advocacy and action perspective. And so the weighting is something that, we made a decision to overweight one metric more than others, because we felt like that was really the big change that we wanted to do. We do measure process today, but at the end of the day, process is a binary outcome. Yes or no, I did or I didn't, and then I can specify what it is. And because we know this is such a massive shift for the front line to become human versus scripted and robotic, we've decided to put 0 weight against the process and have it just as an observation for the time being, until we get a handle and we can keep the front line focused on what it is. I'm a big believer in that your quality scorecard should not be the same year after year. You have to do constant refreshes to it, because your business problems differ and evolve differently. And so you should be able to have a quality program that reflects that. It does mean that change management is important, because we have a front line of 20,000 plus teammates, and we want to make sure that everybody feels supported through any changes that we do to our own quality scorecard.
Great answers. I had another poll question here about moving to the QA automation software world. Interesting answers. It looks like 4 people considered some software, but they've not been happy. I don't want to go deeply into any product pitching per se. While SupportLogic does have a product that we do offer, at a high level, I just want to mention that the world of QA automation software for customer support has a spectrum, right? There are tools which help you with just manual QA. So they're like software layers for whatever manual, sampling process that you're doing. In that world, you're still doing that 1% of all the conversations that you want to pick. You're manually, reviewing all of them. So that is one world. The other spectrum is where tools that promise this AI-powered QA, like we promise the same thing as well, where 100% of all interactions can be automatically scored by the tool, while your human resources are focused more on the higher value add coaching and other activities. So, depending on where your journey is, you could start with manual, you go fully automated. The whole spectrum is available, right? And given that, in your own personal journeys, I'm sure each of you has considered multiple softwares. You're probably using some of them. You probably like some of them, did not like. As you think of bringing software tools, AI-powered or not AI-powered, what have you liked so far? What would you have wished for these tools to have? Any thoughts on that?
So So, I mean, our quality management journey has been, started spreadsheets, and then again, as we grow and continue to scale, that doesn't scale well. So, using software, unifying scorecards, right? And you kind of see now, evolution of that support experience, right? As you start dialing in, you get better tool sets to manage and see how it's working, and you kind of see improvements over time, or you see that experience kind of duplicate over time. But there is the time, right? And that's the time that your team members and our managers or team leads, they're doing the manual draw, right? Pulling in those tickets, doing the QA, depending on the team size, right? You can do Q&A, for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. And that's on top of all the other duties if you don't have a dedicated person. So, as we've evolved and stuff like that, we are also incorporating automation solutions, AI and machine learning solutions to help, kind of supercharge our managers and team leads, and kind of like, hey, we're your attention, focused, and necessarily a transactional, like a chore, like doing quality management. And it is, it's just chewing away at the time. But I think, as we look and see how, the AI is gotten a lot better. In the past, we've had certain tools where we tried it and it was just totally missing the mark. And you'd get a report or something back on what the experience, negative, positive, and you're like, you kind of see what's going on in the transcript. And you're like, this isn't it. And then, I think recently over the last year, definitely see a lot of like just AI and machine learning tools that really manage the support experience, or get in a way, in a place that helps, like, this is actually accurate information. I'm getting a good report on it. And so we're using and involving our quality, to kind of, instead of looking at a small section, again, supercharging and looking at all interactions and measuring quality across the board instead of just sampling. So there's an evolution of what it looks like. And, I think it's definitely getting in a better place, and just gives us more visibility across the board of what our support experience is looking like, and, managing it.
Nice. Neil, David, have you, as you looked at multiple tools, have you had some thoughts they could just be plain vanilla software layers or AI powered solutions?
So for me, I think it's evolution or a journey. And I would recommend every company to start small, right? Start with the basic stuff, have people doing the all good job with spreadsheet. And as you feel comfortable about that you're really hitting the right point, start into just, I would say, basic software to automate that process. The next level should be some form of AI. And as Eddie mentioned, those tools give you some very basic. They usually just search for specific words and things that you kind of highlighted, and based on that, can give you some kind of a heat map. And as you feel comfortable with that, then go to the real next level, which is really tools that are really powered by, OpenAI or generative AI, that can really understand the depth of the human interaction and see how that works. I don't think it's a 1 to 100 journey. It takes some time and get comfortable with it. And this entire world of AI is evolving so fast. There's, I think, an investment of $100 billion in just AI in the last few years. So it's going to get better. And as it's tuned and get better and more accurate, we should be able to see the benefits of it.
Yeah, look, we're just starting our automation journey. And, I'm excited about a few things about this journey. And one is, that we can do new types of sampling that potentially we really hadn't thought about before. And we can do a combination of, did we do the process right? And did we get the experience right? Which I also think is helpful. And we're going to start with process because it's a lot more binary in nature, and we can understand the accuracy as we go through. Because it does take a few months, at least, as I understand it. I'm still a bit of a newbie here, but my understanding is it does take a few to 6-8 months potentially to get that kind of accuracy that you really will find as beneficial. But I'm excited about the coverage to 100% because I think that, I just, like, 2% is not enough. I just don't think it's enough to help even an agent on a weekly basis really do to change their behaviors and be impactful in the way that it truly could be. And I think that, I struggle with trying to make people into humans from robots, and now trying to get a robot to tell a human how they're actually doing. But, we'll know over time as to whether or not that's actually successful. And Claire asked a question, how do you build trust? And first of all, I have to trust the results because I don't know if I do. And so we're going to run it in the background. We're not going to broadly mention any of this for at least the first 2 to 3 months until we reach an accuracy rate that we're comfortable with, that then we can share. And then what we can do is combine a short time, a transition time, where we can say, here's the results and here's the results of the manual. So if they're highly aligned, then I think you can build trust running concurrent processes until you're actually ready to unleash it on the world. But I actually think that the change management part of this is just going to be so important to get right, because robots telling humans what to do. No, I don't know if that it didn't work for Arnold in Terminator, and it's not going to work in the real world where we are today.
Well, it worked for Arnold. It didn't work for anybody else.
In the second.
No, I think that's a very interesting question. And I think, David, your approach is what I would say. First, I think my leadership team, the QM people need to trust the software and see that it's really accurate and it doesn't make some basic mistakes. And when we as a leader believe in it, then you can sell almost everything to everyone, because it's really to their benefits and it can improve what they do, can make their life easier. It's not a tool to spy on them. It's not a tool to, find all of their flows. It's just a tool to make things better for our customers. And if it's better for our customers, it's eventually better for them. So I think there is a way to sell it. But for that, we just need to be convinced that it's really doing what it's supposed to be doing. And that takes some time. And you're absolutely right, David. It takes relatively long time, because any one of those large language models requires hundreds of thousands of interactions to get better. It's not out of the box thing. You plug in, you open it up, and it just knows everything. It takes hundreds of thousands of interactions to really get to this accuracy level. It's a journey, but there's so much potential there that it's going to be, I think, unwise for any one of us in this world of customer experience not to look into it.
So I think for a lot of my teams, as far as like AI integration, AI in our workflow, I have a lot of like engineers and analysts just excited about it, and kind of look at that as an opportunity. As we look at supercharging, or kind of as we do, trying to support at scale. A lot of my teams I see us like embracing it, or kind of see like, hey, what can we get? What can we do with this? As and pretty transparent, like, hey, here's what we've been getting, here's what we're outputting, and just kind of we brought our team members, like through the journey. They've been part of that process, and almost kind of working on building excitement, and having teams like, hey, when can I get onboarded into the new AI QA platform, or hey, how can I get when can I get my team in the shoot next to be part of this these interactions?
That's great. I'll come to the last section of our discussion. We are almost on the hour, maybe 5-10 minutes that we can riff about this. Neer and David were talking about OpenAI, right? Clearly, the entire world of AI, and I have been this whole applied application AI business for almost a decade now. The entire world of AI has been completely upended, right? So there's before ChatGPT and there's after ChatGPT. It's a step function shift, right? The good news for companies like ours is that people's trust in AI is going up. Thanks to ChatGPT, right? So we obviously have to level up to that. But now people do trust. Earlier, they would not trust. And one of the things that happened in the customer service world in 2016, 2017 area was everybody wanted to replace human agents with bots. There's a ton of money that went in, but the level of technology was so bad that we all quickly came back to human agents, right? But now with this whole ChatGPT and OpenAI advances, there's quite likely, and it's a good possibility, that we may actually have good functioning intelligent bots going forward, right? So in that world, assuming 100 cases today are answered by humans, and in this world, let's say it goes to like 50 cases by humans, 50 by really smart bots. In that world, how do you think of QM? Are you going to look at monitoring the bot responses and seeing where they're going right, where they're going wrong? Or you would assume that bots are always right? Like, how do you approach in that world? And I think that world is coming very quickly. And as QM practitioners, how do we think about that?
I think that's a very good question. And I would say that I think only my partner is 100% right all the time. That's the only person in the world that's always right. A part of that, I think that there's a lot of hype around ChatGPT and OpenAI and all of that. I don't have any fear that work agent job will be replaced. I think that the ChatGPT tools or any other bot can augment, make their life easier, faster, quicker, and really push them up the ladder to do more meaningful, more complex type of work. I don't necessarily look at that as a replacement. I don't see the entire contact center going away. I really don't. I think it's going to shift the complexity and what people do in that world up the ladder, which is a positive thing. Now, into the question of QM and all of that, you absolutely need to monitor the bot behavior. So we use 2 different vendors today on our platform, and we consistently monitoring, training, applying what we learn to the bot. I don't see any difference here. If you just let it go and let it run wild, again, this is the system that learns and can learn from its own mistakes and actually make them think that are not good, make them as part of the process that they think it's good. So you constantly need to monitor it. Whether we're going to find a software that monitor the other software, I don't know. But I definitely think for the beginning, you'll need to have your QM definitely monitoring the tool that monitors the bot to make sure that what you get there is what you were looking for.
Well, let me just say, do I trust bots today? No, I don't trust bots today. I agree with Nir that we actually have to monitor the output, and because look, I think it's also an obligation on my side to be able to help train the model by providing that kind of good feedback. And so we're building our own internally here, and we've tried a few attempts. I think we're still a far away from it, but it's good learning, and I think it helps us open up our minds to other possibilities. And so, for example, I think, like I said, I'm all in on empathy, and I think empathetically, from an agent perspective, for instance, I think there's other ways that we can also be leveraging AI today, which is, as soon as I get this interaction, tell me everything that's happened to this date. Why shouldn't ChatGPT be able to understand all of the connection points that a customer has gone through on the journey to this particular agent, so I feel informed and I know potentially why they're here and what options might be available. And then I think, look, one of the things that probably, large organizations have are knowledge bases of hundreds of documents to try and sort through and search and take time. Why not just throw it all into a database, put an interface with ChatGPT and say, hey, tell me about this process in 30 words or less so I can be informed and I don't have to spend all this time potentially searching a document that's 3 years old and hasn't been updated since then. So I think it's not only, being a bot that will actually be able to talk to folks, because, at DoorDash today, we do have a chatbot that does work. And we're constantly helping. I think over the last 6 months, we've made a bunch of edits to the engineering team to say it should say this instead. This is better. But I think it's all the other elements of the customer experience that I'm not sure everybody's thinking about yet as probably better use cases for ChatGPT.
Yeah, Eddie, any thoughts on that?
No, definitely. As you get bots, we don't have at BAM, we have too many bots in our support workflow. But as they get better and can handle more complex tasks, I think it'd be critical to just kind of make sure that we're managing what that looks like, and make sure that, again, as you do QA for your team members, there's got to be some level of QA for a bot that's in your support workflow, and making sure that experience is being carried through. And that bot's functioning how you need it to, and helping your and supporting your customers the best way that you want it.
Nice. All right, gentlemen, thanks a lot for your participation today and sharing all the valuable insights. Just to close it for our audience, all I would say is QM is a very critical function of any modern support center, a contact center. You're probably most likely doing it manually because the systems just did not exist where they could help you scale up to 100% of interactions. Now they do. AI has also advanced significantly. You still have to trust, like our panelists already talked about it. You have to build trust in these systems. But we would recommend strongly looking at a variety of vendors. We are one of them. There's other great companies out there as well. Please do consider that, because QM is a significant function It helps us improve our customer experience, our CSATs, lower our agent churn. They are not as frustrated anymore. Their stress levels come down. There's a multi-pronged benefits of this function. And now there's technology that exists to really supercharge this.